Hey everybody, welcome back to Your Free TV. It is Monday, June 8th, 2026. I'm so glad to be back with you here on the channel. I want to say thank you so much for supporting. Thank you so much to Janice for the donation. Thank you so much. So appreciated. And for everyone supporting monthly, it is just, hugely appreciated. So thank you so much. And I'll jump in with the disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution, protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully, harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. And I'll do a quick plug for my fantastic sponsor, c60evo.com/YAFTV. This is the awesome bottle of the olive oil, ESS 60, the purest carbon 60 out there, made in the best lab in the world. The same exact configuration that was used in the Nobel Prize winning for carbon 60. You can check it out below, c60evo.com/YAFTV. Use the code YAFTV for 10% off. It is used in the Big C labs, the Big C centers, alternative care centers, treating everything from CNS disorders to inflammation to everything else. It cleans out your mitochondria. It attaches to it with your glutathione and melatonin and takes the garbage right out of your body. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, gets the garbage out of your neurons. It's just an amazing, amazing product, and they sponsor me. Anybody who ever donates to the channel gets 15% off. This is the olive oil I've been really into lately, the MCT oil, which is the organic coconut oil. And this, these are sourced in very, very pure ways, these oils, which makes it that much more amazing. And I love the MCT oil because of its antifungal, antimicrobial properties, although olive oil has antimicrobial properties as well. Just amazing products if you want to fight inflammation, clear your mind, have great focus, and then sleep better in the evening. It's just a fantastic, fantastic product. So thanks for letting me plug c60evo.com/YAFTV. Use the code YAFTV for 10% off. They are my great sponsor. So I always want to mention them. And we're going to jump right in here with the news, which is really intense. As always, today is just another day in the ongoing incredible contest for liberty that is American Revolution 250 that we are living through, and we were chosen for this time. I will just say that if you worry about the future, fear, do not fear. I think it's the second most said thing in the New Testament, have no fear, that God is with us, and that we have been, selected to be here during this time to fight this battle. So choose the part of the liberty battle that gives you the most joy and get at it when it feels close to your purpose. And join tab.org or .us is so fantastic because they're showing where there's over 300,000 unclaimed literal official positions in local governments across the country. Join tab.us. You can go there and just, basically claim a seat, take control of your local governments. And 70% of local government elections are unopposed. So this is how we take our country back. It is one county at a time. So do your part. We have so much more we're going to need to do stuff in and do actions in. And that I'm going to start here with the primary tomorrow in South Carolina, because this is so important, so important. We have Lindsey Graham being the contestant against him. The other player here is Mark Lynch, who is doing a great job. He basically wants to see Lindsey Graham in jail as a traitor for everything he has done. All the funding of all of the Islamist groups, all of his treasonous support that's gone on, and what we might be seeing soon, some money laundering to do with Ukraine. That's a whole nother thing. But basically, tomorrow is the primary in South Carolina. We wish there was somebody to primary Tim Scott, too, that goofball who was backed by, of course, Larry Ellison out of Oracle. to the tune of at least $30 million, but I think it grew up to $65 million. Some people say it was as high as $300 million when they were trying to have Tim Scott beat Trump, okay, for POTUS. And so, basically what's going on with the primary in South Carolina is that if we can get Lindsey Graham to get less than 50% of the votes, that's the whole point, is that there will have to be a runoff election. And this is what we're going for. Mark Lynch for Senate, or lynchforsenate.com, lynchforsenate.com. And tomorrow is the day for the primary. So get out there and vote in the primary in South Carolina. It is just so, so important. So that's why I'm bringing it up so huge. And of course, we have what is it, the 57th, 59th anniversary of the USS Liberty attack by Israel, where they attacked the USS Liberty, their surveying ship that was there out, off the coast there of Egypt, and where we had this huge attack by Israel. And we get Thomas Massie coming up today. And was I going to cover it now? I wasn't, but I might do. But no, I'm going to say a couple more things first. Thomas Massie basically asking for an investigation into the USS Liberty to do with Israel's role in slaughtering U.S. Navy men during that time in 1967. We'll get there in a second, but basically I want to just say that, on Thursday, we also have the NDAA vote. Okay, this is the National Defense Authority Act that includes that section 224. We all want out of there. That fuses U.S. military, tech, etc. with Israel. It is so beyond treasonous that it's crazy. And so between now and Thursday, you want to be calling up 202-225-3121 your representatives immediately. And we do have Thomas Massie coming out and saying that he is putting up a referendum to remove it. Ro Khanna did it during the basically, no official vote session last week. But now we have Massie putting up an actual referendum that will come up here, and we need to fight against this fusion with Israel in our Pentagon, in our military, in our entire sovereignty. Okay, but then we of course know it's also Senate Intelligence Authorization Act that is our treasonous Senate Intelligence and Senate Armed Services Committee members. This is again, Lindsey Graham, right? We got Tom Cotton. We've got and Tom Cotton put the bill up for the fusion of the intelligence in Senate Intelligence Authorization Act. That's also being put out there. This is Tom Cotton, totally bought. He always just looks so distraught, like he's just so over the barrel screwed by Israel, but 100% on board for bringing them in to fuse them into our intelligence, as well as our military, tech, DARPA, AI, everything under the sun. Basically, we don't have to fund them because they have everything we already have. And not only is it that they, in the intelligence realm, do they just get the intelligence reports like Five Eyes, the Anglophile establishment of the Five Eyes, right, with the dominion of the crown countries that want to steal everything from us and know everything we're doing. But Israel was always a transactional country, not included in that, versus a trusted country like them, as if they could be trusted. But basically, the situation was the espionage is so hard out of Israel that we can't trust them with any kind of, blanket access to our intelligence. And, they don't only just get the intelligence like Five Eyes, they would get the key codes, basically, the codes to the intelligence where they could do whatever they want with the intelligence. It's not just the reports. It's the access to the actual creation of the reports, all of it, all the inside tech of the key codes to access all intelligence. And of course, we had, over the weekend, last Friday, we had the Defense Intelligence Journal put out this Pentagon supposed leak, but it came out through the Defense Intelligence Journal, basically saying that, Israel is our number one highest level threat. Hyper aggressive Israeli espionage is ongoing, and that it is a massive problem for national security, not to mention sovereignty. And so we're going to be getting more into that, but I'm going to cover a few things before that, and we're going to get into the USS Liberty, of course, the 59th anniversary today of Israel's attack on the USS Liberty to do with Project Cyanide, that was in cahoots with our deep state, even at that time in 1967. The beginnings of it to try to make America attach itself to Israel as a military partner. And then, of course, the creation of this, what we would now call a false flag, but really is just Israel attacking the USS Liberty, killing, many, many people, injuring many, many others, and still they're not being justice. But Thomas Massie is bringing it up today, where he's saying we need an investigation. So we're going to get back into there in a moment, but I wanted to talk about the situation again with Albania and the Sazan Island. I feel like this is worth mentioning again with Kushner and Ivanka, that we've got this situation where the Sazan Island in Albania, it's now like day 8 with massive, massive protests of like hundreds of thousands of people. This is like a massive, massive protest of the buying up by oligarchs, Rothschilds et al. And Kushner et al., the islands off the coast of Albania. And one of the reasons is that this summer, they literally have been blocking access to what is public land where Albanians enjoy their summer months, okay, where they can go out to the beach and enjoy their summertime, now being all blocked in this seaside $5 billion resort that, with Nathaniel Rothschild organizing this this buyout, to get this resort done right across from Sazan Island, that the Kushner, Ivanka team have been buying, where basically they're usurping water that the locals need in the area that's already dodgy infrastructure. They're running out of water, and basically we're having private security that is doing like brutal removal of local Albanians. And so they're literally just out protesting in the hundreds of thousands in Albania right now. And I think it's very important to note that, and that, this is a massive flamingo reserve, one of the only ones in the world, in this delta out of Albania, where you have flamingos, beautiful flamingos. Remember when they used to be in Florida? Yeah, not anymore. But flamingos there in Albania, where they have their kind of singular place now, where they literally are in this delta, what is this incredible sanctuary, and now this build out of the airport right next to it, again by Kushner et al. In this $5 billion resort that they're wanting to build there on the seaside that is right across from Sazan Island. And of course they want to own the property right across from their private island. It kind of reminds me of somebody. Who does it remind me of? I don't know. Well, it reminds me of somebody not good. And on that note, I might just mention this now, which is that Donald Trump Jr., DJ, we call him, Donald Trump Jr. just married into an Epstein banker family, which is even more crazy. We're just like, could we stop already? Trump, could you what? It's interesting, the genetics, right? Trump's always like genetics. Well, we got Tiffany, right, marrying an Eastern Orthodox, man. Interesting there. We get Donald Trump Jr. marrying Bettina Anderson, the daughter of Harry Loy Anderson Jr. He's now dead, but he was Epstein's banker, now dead, who basically, managed his accounts in West Palm Beach out of. He was president of the Palm Beach National Bank and Trust, and he managed Epstein's accounts there. And he also vouched for Epstein when he was trying to launch huge inroads into the U.S. Virgin Islands, right? And getting Pedo Island going, all of it. But basically trying to get inroads in the banks there in the Virgin Islands. And he basically sent letters, in defense of his character. And this was, preceding, Epstein's arrest and all of this, but basically saying he's a man of the highest integrity. Epstein is a man of the highest integrity, et cetera, et cetera. And this is the man whose daughter, Donald Trump Jr. just married last Thursday. Okay. So, what and why? Why is this going on? And it's interesting because today also the Epstein files are going public, by appointment viewing in DC in the Capitol. So that's very interesting as well. And we can't forget, I just need to mention, because it barely got mentioned at the time, but what was it, like 3 or so years, how many years ago? Quite a few years ago now, where Ivana Trump, right, Trump's first wife, just, took the tumble down the stairs and just dead, supposedly fell down the stairs and died. And it was so little fanfare around it and so little mourning or anything. It's just all, it's super creepy. I mean, I just have to mention it. I'm not sure why, but I do. And I'm just going to mention this too. Like Barron is now worth over $30 million. It's interesting to note these things as we're moving forward, where we have, this intense fight going on that is massive, right? We have, the election steal in California happening so hugely, and obviously Trump railing against it, Trump railing at Thune today, basically to fire Elizabeth McDonough, the parliamentarian. He's like, why do you have this Harry Reid, Obama, appointed parliamentarian in the Senate still there? Why is she still there? Fire her already. She should have been fired day one. And basically saying, you have to absolutely fire her, and we need to pass the Save America Act now. And on that note, I will say, yes, we sure do, because McDonough was the one who took it out of what was the reconciliation bill last week, where we were going to have it in there, and she took it out, and she's been used like this all the while because she's very happy to do so, because she's a total deep stater. I'm sure a council member SES person. And Trump came out and said this is a nasty holdover from Mitch McConnell, installed by Harry Reid and Barack Obama. And by the way, after you fire her, also kill the filibuster. And what we have Thune coming out and saying is, oh, yeah, he might want that, but it's not happening. So 202-224-3121 for your Senate, your feckless, disgusting traitors, senators, including Lindsey Graham from of course, Senate Intelligence Committee and the Senate Armed Services Committee. All of this to do with the NDAA 224 and the SIAA, Senate Intelligence Authorization Act 622, to fuse America with Israel in a giant treasonous act, which should absolutely put them all in military tribunals immediately for even attempting it, let alone it passing. So making those calls, barraging them, the time for polite is over, but you want to be educated when you call them. You want to talk in facts and resolution with your constitutional authority that this is absolutely treasonous and they must stop. So those calls to Congress at 202-225-3121, 2777 for Johnson, for Senate 202-224-3121, 2321 for Thune. And there's billblasterapp.org, et cetera, if you want to do it that way. But I think just blow up their lines with the phone calls to the White House also is very, very important. And so let's move on from there, because there's so much going on here as they're stealing the election in California. Of course, it's gone now where Pratt, running for mayor, is now at the bottom of the bus. He doesn't even get in there, and this is exactly the steal. And that's what Trump was calling out when he raged against Kristen Welker, or whatever her name is, on Friday, where he basically threw down the microphone, Kristen Welker, for the Meet the Press interview there in Wisconsin, sitting in the pouring rain in that warehouse where he had done his rally, or his round table, and basically saying, you're crooked, all of you are crooked. He called out CBS as being crooked too, under Barry Weiss. I mean, he was calling out everybody, and he said the elections are rigged. He said California is being stolen, and just railed on Kristen Welker, the disgusting person. And he throws down the mic, and then steps on the mic, crunches the mic on the way out. And it is so important to understand that, yes, that is why Bill Pulte is being brought in as DNI, and it is at the same time he's being brought in as DNI because of so much to do with the fraud, and I outlined it in my last video, to do with this foreign espionage case into election stealing that is going on right now in Southern Florida. Very, very important. Watch the last video if you didn't catch it. But then we get, this DNI report that has also leaked, that went to the Defense Intelligence Agency. And this is, of course, out of Gabbard again. And this having to do with Israel at the highest level of espionage, more so than CCP, more so than any other country, is the high level of espionage going on by Israel against our country, while they're trying to put these treasonous fusing of our intelligence and Pentagon and tech, biotech, everything with Israel. Absolutely criminal. And so when we look at people like, I've been talking with, linked him a bunch of times, Brandon Weichert, I'll link him again below, with his Substack, where he is basically saying, when we look at 622, the Senate Intelligence Authorization Act 622, he said that in his talks with, he used to be in intelligence, and he's from Capitol Hill, and he was, and he said in his connections that he just talked to in the last few days, that basically, people from the CIA reporting just massive routine illegal entry into the CIA at Langley, into headquarters, where basically all they'd have to do is be at the door and make a call to unnamed people, senators from the Senate Intelligence Committee. So think Tom Cotton, think Lindsey Graham, think Mark Warner, who is calling out huge that, Pulte is being put in as DNI, because he knows that part of this, so much of this, is about money laundering that Pulte is going to be uncovering. But he basically is, hair on fire. And when we're looking at Ukraine money laundering, and that $9 billion that just got, passed last week in the middle of the night, at the end of the week, we're looking at, Mark Warner is key in this, and he is. When we look at the anti-weaponization fund, and again, Lindsey Graham coming out against it, and I'll talk about what he said instead we should be doing. The anti-weaponization fund, of course, creates legal documentation in these cases. It goes all the way back to Bernie Sanders getting some payout from the legal anti-weaponization fund that Trump has tried to put out there, that $1.7 billion. because they want this legal, you know, documentation to go forward for the election steals, not just from 2020, but back to 2016, what happened with Bernie Sanders and the steal by HRC, all of it, and that everybody wants to cover it up, and especially Mark Warner, the absolutely corrupt member of the U.S. Intelligence Committee, Mr. Ukraine, who let's go to Lindsey Graham. What did Lindsey Graham say? Lindsey Graham wants to basically do let me see if I can find this. He wants to do something else instead. Yeah, Graham wants to, no, we don't need the anti-weaponization fund. Instead, what we need is just to use what already exists, which is called the Federal Tort Claims Act. The Federal Tort Claims Act. And the statute of limitations is 2 years. Okay, 2 years. Okay, so he knows that what that means is that, nothing will get prosecuted or will get put through the courts, okay, to do with handing out this money to the people harmed in all of the election steal, the weaponization against all the people involved, that won't be able to be prosecuted, able to be even go through the legal system, because the Federal Tort Claims Acts end in 2 years. And so, yes, again, Mark Lynch for Senate. .com, but basically tomorrow is primary day. Lindsey Graham needs to be primaried out of South Carolina. So important. And so maybe I'll jump into the USS Liberty here for a minute, just so we can kind of refresh what happened as we're dealing with facing Israel trying to fuse with our entire country to steal everything from us. Because also what came out in the news today is that the U.S. has had no reciprocal intelligence from Israel, hence the hobbling, the sabotaging of all the Iran negotiations, the murders, the assassinations, same in Ukraine that they're involved with, and this whole situation of the spying on the people involved in negotiations with Iran and the constant attacks. The U.S. does not, the Pentagon does not get the information that Israel is going to go and attack Lebanon, now informing their settler, crazy psychopaths to get ready. You're about to be able to move into southern Lebanon and claim territory and move in there with your psychotic, murderous spree that you do once you're there. All of this going down. And so it's time to remember the USS Liberty, which, of course, is a massive, massive deal. And people like Phil Turney, who's still a living survivor, a Navyman at the time on the USS Liberty, the unsinkable USS Liberty that they tried to take out and kill everybody aboard, that they tried. And unfortunately, they couldn't take it down because word got out. U.S. started sending planes that then they revoked and called back. And so this is June 8th of 1967, 59 years ago, where, and you can go to ussliberty.org, and I link a documentary below if you want to check it out. But basically, and Representative Thomas Massie brought this to the floor today on the 59th anniversary. And Phil Turney actually wrote a book about it called Stay Afloat. So you can check that out as well. But basically what we have here is Thomas Massie putting a resolution up to launch an investigation into the attack by Israel on the USS Liberty. And this had to do with Project Cyanide, that was a deep state, deep intelligence operation between the already embedded Israeli spies into the U.S., into the U.S. military and intelligence, where they were trying to get the U.S. already, to claim that Israel is the closest ally, right after, JFK is dead, and he had said Israel is is a total existential threat to the United States of America, total rogue state coming after our, spying on every level, etc. And then look what happened to him. And then we get, of course, Project Cyanide to basically be in cahoots with this USS Liberty attack, where you have Israel sending first the bombers in, where they just strafed the USS Liberty, and then they dumped napalm on it. Okay, and then they sent 3 torpedo boats at it, and this was just a surveying ship. Okay, that was just out surveying. This is not an armed battleship. This is literally like a Navy ship that's out there surveying what's going on. And this is as, of course, Israel wants to go to war with Egypt and wants the U.S.'s help in this. And they blew a 40 by 45-foot hole in the U.S. Liberty, killing dozens then. I believe altogether we had, how many? 34 dead, 174 wounded, and they were left for dead for 17 hours before the U.S. sent help. And the Israelis had jammed their communications, even at that time in 1967, where they couldn't get their signals out for SOS. And they finally got one out. 3 U.S. planes were coming to their aid, and were turned around and recalled. Okay, this is the level of evil we're talking about, where we have 34 dead U.S. Navy men, 174 wounded, and in the meantime, when people were getting wounded all over by the strafing, and you had on the across on the deck, they were shipping, they were moving the wounded, from the deck to the mess hall, and then they strafed again. And just basically machine gunned down the sailors on the deck, transporting the wounded, and they also machine gunned down, blew apart the lifeboats that they had put in the water to try to get away. And this was supposed to be a massive false flag that was going to, of course, bring the U.S. into a massive war in the Middle East for Israel. And this is what we're dealing with. This is the kind of psychopathy of these people. And I know this is an old story, but on the 57th anniversary, it's really worth talking about again that, we're so sick of it. We're so sick of these people. Get out of our business, get out of our country, get out of our intelligence, get out of our everything. Okay. And again, this is the Israeli cabal, okay? And there's a huge fight against it in Israel by the people, against these people. And then there's the others that are massive, crazy, Zionist, Greater Israel, everything. And there's also this kind of Isaac project going on out there that has to do with South America and what's going on with the new Israel South down in Argentina, which I'll be talking about more in the future. But all this places of putting Israelis buying up property, whether it's Ukraine, Argentina, Greek islands, some of it's oligarchs, but some of it's kind of like bring the settlers immediately to Lebanon. It is this it is this diabolical situation of trying to create a worldwide Israel situation. And I don't know why they need to do it, except that it is mental illness. And so, demonic or whatever you want to call it, it is absolutely anti-human. And so what Brandon Weichert had said is that there was routine illegal entry into the CIA headquarters I had mentioned earlier, and that for decades the CIA had long warned that intelligence sharing with Israel and Mossad should be transactional only. Never should they be a trusted country like the Five Eyes, as if they are. And that basically, this is a direct assault on American sovereignty because it codifies the union and fusion of the U.S.-Israeli intelligence into law. Okay, this is access to signal codes, as I talked about before. And this is very, very disturbing because it doesn't only do that, it actually brings in the Abrahamic Accords, where they're basically saying in this document that they want all the Abrahamic Accords countries to also have the same access to intelligence, okay, that Israel has, into the U.S. Okay, this is nutball. This is just a total takeover coup. I mean, it's a coup. It's an Israeli coup, and red, green, blue alliance, whatever you want to call it. Oh, there we got the pictures. Um, on our country to even call for such a thing, that the Abrahamic Accord nations should be given access to all of our intelligence as well. Yeah, why not just give them access to our firstborn and everything else? Just take it all. It is. We need to remember that Israel is very much a City of London controlled entity as well. Okay, they are the same. It is City of London South in a way. It is the same Rothschild banking industry with the cartel Babylon, with the royalty out of Europe, who are in big trouble at the moment. And it's very interesting when we think of Europe and we think of, just for instance, if it was ever like, oh, the U.S. suddenly decided it was going to go to war with Europe, right, and just free all the Western people from the cartel Babylon of the EU, right, and would anybody come to their aid? Would anybody come to Europe's aid? Say Russia was involved as well. Would anyone come to stop that from happening? Israel couldn't do it. Um, and it's just very interesting. Would the CCP come? It's just an interesting thing to think about because it's like these cartel banksters, okay, that are ruining the world for humanity. Um, you know, they they sure do rely on social engineering and propaganda. That's really all that's holding them up. They have no energy or military or anything else. And so it's just an interesting thing to think about, I think. And so moving on from there, we also had this X report that came out on X. Rambo Van Halen had shared this, and this is from a young guy who was talking about, as a young Jewish boy, that he was, brought to these Jewish summer camps, and in the middle of the night they would get woken up, and this gets into all the ritual abuse stuff coming out about, south of Jerusalem, and all, the woman who's the head of the settlement ministry there out of Israel as well. Just super creepy ritual abuse stuff, where the daughter of her had to flee the country. I think she's moved to Italy, where there is a new huge nationalist party rising up against Maloney, by the way. I'll get into that in a moment. But this guy on X reported that this thing called experiential learning, experiential learning, it's just when you look at all of the communes and across Europe and, 1800s, huge, communes that were coming up, they were all like this. It was all sexual abuse of kids. It was all just creepy, mental illness incubators where they would get together and we're all just going to get here and get into a cult formation. But same kind of thing here. So experiential learning, where these kids and these, he was saying he was at a Jewish summer camp. He called it standard from people he had known, where basically in the middle of the night they'd be woken up and told that their cities had been blown up by nuclear BOMBs, and that their families were all dead, and they would let them mourn and just be freaked out and totally traumatize them. And then a while later they would say, no, 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 that didn't happen, but it absolutely could any second. And that's why you have to commit your life to defending the security of Israel, and that you have to have that be your number one concern going forward in your life, and it's your duty to protect it. And it's just so nutball crazy. It is beyond nuts, but it is actually just a huge MK Ultra style situation that they have created since Rothschild started the Greater Israel Project. And it's interesting when we look at the MK Ultra files being seized, right? And how that all happened with the CIA recently, that apparently the Mossad can enter with just a phone call anytime they want. And DNI Gabbard saying, yeah, they came and took the MK Ultra files, and now we're not having the hearings. And it's important to remember, how the Nazi doctors came over and performed all the MK Ultra stuff, and so many of them were Jewish. It's just true, right? Even if you look at Sidney Gottlieb, who started the experimentation labs for the biotech, and created Fort Detrick in Maryland, and then Fauci is like his acolyte. You get with the MK Ultra files, you get Jolyon West, right? And he ends up being the doctor for like every MK Ultra assassin that has existed, right? Whether it is Jack Ruby, right, killing, um, um, killing what's his face, who was the patsy to kill JFK, or the Reagan shooter, who was a great family member of George H.W. Bush, or the Unabomber, and on and on. All of these people, all of their doctor was Jolyon West, and he was out of that that university up in Canada where Kamala Harris's mother works. This kind of thing. And it's all just one big happy family when it comes to these psychopathic social engineers that are just so demon possessed. And so, we have to wonder how much of that seizing of the files actually gets into this mind controlled assassin stuff that they're trying to stamp out, the knowledge of us knowing it. And there's always so much more to say about all of that. But I might be getting here. Let's see. Yeah, I have so much I could say, but I'm just gonna mention a few. I think I'm just gonna mention a few important tidbits of news before we go. We have Tom Homan coming out and saying that ICE is about to hit New York City really hard, and they're saying that he's saying that the hugest force yet of ICE is about to go to New York City, right? This is right before the next Summer of Love is about to break out there in New York. So we're having Tom Homan saying this out in the news, like this is about to happen in New York City. Like, why say it? Why say it? Just do it. Don't let us know in advance. We know at DHS we get what Steve Bannon calls, kung fu plumber, which is, of course, Markwayne Mullins there at DHS, who seems to just, kitty litter box syndrome of just cover up, dig down, cover up, just basically spinning wheels at DHS. But basically, Tom Homan comes out and says that to announce it to all of us, which is seems dumb, okay, to put it out there that ICE is about to hit New York City. But then we get that 17 immigrants who received U.S. citizenship, and then in the process before and after had committed massive amounts of fraud, are being basically denaturalized. So that's one little win, 17 migrants. And so very interesting there. And then we get Tom Fitton. I'm sorry that this is so kind of like, exposing all the crap, but it is true. This is what's going on. Tom Fitton coming out from judicialwatch.org, the massive bulldog that he is, and his organization, fighting harder than almost anybody else with his FOIA request to get the truth out through Judicial Watch. And that's always, if you're looking for somebody to really support you can trust, that would be judicialwatch.org. But basically come out and saying the FBI and Patel, in particular, Kash Patel, the director, attacking him and his organization because they've been trying for 18 months to get the assassination attempt of Trump at Butler by crooks to get those documents FOIA'd out and to be able to review them independently. And there's 75,000 caches of these. And basically, they only have received like a few hundred documents, and they're all super heavily redacted. But somehow something leaked through there that said that Crooks had met with a sheriff's deputy from the area um, before the shooting event. Okay, that he had been in contact with the sheriff's deputy in that area. And so Tom Fitton put that out, and he immediately gets attacked by Kash Patel and the FBI, saying that it is lies when he literally has, like, a tiny bit of truth he can get out of these redacted documents. And so it's totally slandering Tom Fitton, and basically stonewalling, gaslighting the rest of us. And so again, we're just getting this cover up, while Tom Fitton, of course, is doing the heavy lifting all around. And I will mention this about Italy, that we did have the former, who is a former general, Roberto Vanacci. Roberto Vanacci starting a new party there called Futuro Nacional, so Future Nation, coming out hard to basically kind of restore Britain style, going up against Maloney, and they've come up to about 4% in the polls in just a few months, and his stance is totally anti-EU. And so possibly, with magic, push and push, but basically, people really committing his desire, kind of like Marine Le Pen, but basically is anti-EU. Okay, let's end the EU already, and get our nations back. And so, very, very interesting to watch all of this as we keep going. And yeah, wait, I might talk about one more thing here that had to do with Restore Britain, because I know I'd come out and said I think it's dodgy, that Restore Britain, prevents a Reform Party, win in Manchester, because that was just, a dodgy election that could really give, an MP-ship for new replacement to Keir Starmer of Andy Burnham. And I was worried about that, but I did listen to Bergen, what is his name? Let me see if I can find this. Hold on one second. I wanted to talk about that real quick. I hope I can find it. If not, I'll get to it tomorrow. Where we're hearing that Nigel Farage intends to step down in order to let there be the first Islamist prime minister, and that he has literally gone full deep state, crazy town. Darn, I might have to do it tomorrow. But basically, what you had, is it Bergen? You know what? I'm sorry. I know. Oh wait, did I find it? Oh no, this is before that. What I really think is important is that we need to be really careful with what's going on with reform and. All right, sorry, it's taking too long, and I'm going to get back to it. I'll get back to it tomorrow. But it is just something that I thought was really important to think about. That could this be a takeover where we're seeing just a play for power by reform, where they plan to put in a new the first Islamist Muslim prime minister, who actually had attacked Rupert Lowe, claiming that Rupert Lowe was trying to attack him, and had his guns taken from him, had done all of this really dodgy stuff to him. All right, I'm sorry. This is taking too long. I'll get back to it tomorrow, because I found it very, very interesting. Okay, Andrew Bridgen, I found it. Just takes a minute or two. So yeah, Mohammed Zia Youssef, 38 years old, not Nigel Farage's kind of handler, is what they're claiming by Andrew Bridgen, who was a great UK MP who had exposed all the everything to do with the COVID dangers, the COVID jab dangers. Totally went for it during his time as an MP. Well, basically, he is saying that Rupert Lowe's house was raided. Rupert Lowe, 68, house raided by police, had his guns taken, 5 a.m. in the morning, scaring the crap out of his wife and daughter, and that Mohammed Zia Youssef is the one that made this raid on his home happen because he was claiming that he had gotten a murder threat from Rupert Lowe. And so this is very interesting while we're doing this with Restore Britain, because of course we want Britain to have patriots in charge. And of course, for some time, Nigel Farage has been sinking in credibility and aligning more and more with the Muslim faction. But something about this man, Mohammed Zia Youssef, has been, of course, taking more and more center stage. And what Andrew Bridgen, former MP, has been saying is that, and you can reach him at Real Andrew Bridgen on X, at Real Andrew Bridgen, is that the whole plan here with Farage is that he would step down very quickly, and there would be then Mohammed Youssef stepping in. So very interesting there, and I will get more into it. So sorry for that long delay and this kind of strange ending to this video, but it is the way it is sometimes. But let's just, again, just remember that it is time, if you're in South Carolina, to vote in those primaries tomorrow. We need you to so much. It's so vital. We also need everybody who has the wherewithal to be participating in this animated contest of liberty, to go to jointab.us and take part in your local governments. Over 300,000 positions that are unoccupied, that you could go in and basically occupy immediately to take control of your local governments. Every single one of them, so important. County by county, 3144, I believe there's 3,144 counties in this country. So get involved and let's do it now. Before Thursday, we have the NDAA vote, okay? Thomas Massey's putting up the referendum. It is time to call your Congress members, 202-225-3121, and berate them about stopping Section 224, 5 pages, in this massive bill, okay, in this $1.15 trillion NDAA spending, that if you think of that, 1.15 trillion of our taxpayer dollars, okay, that Israel just have access to. Full fusion right in there. And in the end of our sovereignty to a nation that is rogue. And so I want to put that out there. You please make those calls or go to billblasterapp.org. Get involved, make yourself be known here in this time that you were chosen for, to be here and participate in. So I'm going to leave it there. Thanks so much for watching. Sorry for that few minutes end drag. But it's so important we take action now this week to stop this evil that is encroaching upon our liberties, especially as we come up here. It's less than a month to America 250, and we can't let these defeats happen now at this hour. So get involved, and also pray, put on God's armor, put on that belt of truth, right? Breastplate of righteousness, and that means that you know the word, that you know what you are signing up for, and the truth will set you free. So pray, take up your armor, and I will see you tomorrow. You are free.